and bring out the girl child, and also to make sure that they have equal opportunities. So that is very incredible work. We will be hearing from her. We have Elena from the Italian Cultural Institute also, and I think it's my first time meeting you, and I will also be looking forward to interact with you. And we have Tumaini from Graffiti Girls, also another incredible group using graffiti to empower girls within the country. And finally, we have the incredible guest all the way from Italy, Xedo, bboy Xedo. So yes, I think it will be a pleasure, and I think let's get into it. I think I will let you jump over. So just to introduce the topic, hip-hop for me is something that is very special, and I would just like to read something small that I wrote in preparation, because I think sometimes as practitioners of hip-hop, we do not have sometimes proper ways of talking about what we are doing with hip-hop. And so for me, that's why it's very important to have some of these guests here to talk about what impact are they having with hip-hop. A lot of times when people think about hip-hop, we are thinking about the music or the dance, but many a times we forget that after that comes the impact. And so this special panel is going to talk mostly about the impact. We know about the music. Most of us are lovers of hip-hop already as a music or as a dance form, but it's important to also look at the impact side of it. And so for over 5 decades, hip-hop has been a survival guide for the urban experience. As city developers were planning and drawing grid lines, DJs, MCs, breakers, rappers, and graffiti artists were living in the margins of these lines, providing what architect Michael Ford coined a 50-year-old pre-occupants report on our built environment. The panelists will discuss hip-hop as a rigorous technical toolkit, the origins as well as transmission of the culture over the last 50 years offer a blueprint of how we can redefine our landscapes and move towards genuine social transformation. The key topics will include the role of hip-hop in reclaiming abandoned spaces, the shift from street to the institution and its role in cultural diplomacy, the contributions of hip-hop in social transformation, civic engagements, as well as activism, gender and visibility within the hip-hop space, as well as the politics of resources, infrastructure, and support for hip-hop movements and initiatives. So this is what most of our panelists are going to focus on, and we're just going to use their professionals in what they do, and so we want to hear their expert opinions on some of these issues. So first of all, I will just give 2 minutes to each one of them to just introduce themselves and talk about the work that they do and why it matters. We will start with Tony.
Hi guys, my name is Antoinette Apondi, also well known as TONYII Skate. I am a skateboarder, I am an artist doing fine art and murals, and I'm also a community developer, having co-founded Girlskate Nairobi in 2023 alongside my co-founder, bboy. She is not yet here. We've been in existence for the past 3 years now. Started in 2023, and we've had like some notable. What we do is we empower women through skateboarding in Kenya and East Africa. So far, some of our achievements. Notable achievements. We've gone towards Nakuru, we've been in Nairobi here, done something in Mombasa, Lamu County, and in East Africa, we were in Kigali, in Arusha, and also the Nyege Nyege Festival in Uganda. So that's what we do. We just create impact, just empowering women, and that's how far me mentioning these spaces that we've gone. I just want to showcase how the power of skateboarding and women going through using this sport can go far, and we're still going far. So I'm so honored to be part of this panel today and to be able to discuss how skateboarding could be a tool to create ownership in public spaces. I'm excited. Hope you too are.
Hey everyone, my name is Deborah Tumaini. I go by Art Tumaini. I am an artist, a muralist, a creative. I am from Graffiti Girls, Kenya. I joined in 2023. Yes. And I mean, it's been a journey of impact, a journey of using art to tell stories, to reclaim the narrative, and to inspire. Graffiti Girls has been around for a while, 2016, roughly, and it's just been amazing. We paint for social change. We are currently working on a project in here in Kenya, actually, and we're doing different murals. We just completed 4 murals in Korogosho, talking about teenage pregnancy, painting about teenage pregnancy, telling the community, hey, young girls should not be getting pregnant like that, you know. And when people walk by us and they see that it's girls painting stories about girls, they're inspired and they're like, okay, you know, they give us a listening ear. And it's just so beautiful to see how art can do this kind of things, how it can communicate and inspire and change the community. And that's what I am about, and that's what we are about, and that's what art and hip hop and dance and skate and all these things are about. And it's an honor to be here, and I'm looking forward to having this conversation with all of us here. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Emmanuel Otieno Menje. You can also call me bboy Manouver. I'm the founder of Illegal Hip Hop Dance in South Africa and co-founder of Legitz Movement and Arts Organization. So basically what we do in Legitz, we use movement arts and hip hop culture as a tool of empowerment, education and social change, especially in marginalized community like Kibera. And what we do in Legitz, we don't just see like movement and arts and hip hop as just like music and dance. We see it as a methodology of changing the community and inspiring youths. And we want to build a mind to youth and create a safe space for the community to express through the programs we run, like workshops, community programs, mentorship, life skills, and ciphers and outreaches. And what we do in Legitz, we use movement, breakdancing, storytelling, and cultural education to help the community and youths around our area and beyond to develop discipline, confidence, and critical thinking. So that's what basically we do in Legitz, and looking forward to have an active session with you guys. And thank you for coming. Yeah.
Hello everybody, my name is Elena. I work at Italian Cultural Institute. I will be very short. And when people ask us what we do, I like to say that we like to connect people. And this is what also we are trying to do with Xedo, coming to Nairobi and connecting with the community here. In this way, we really hope that more things are coming and also beyond us and beyond our work. So thank you for coming and looking forward to join the panel.
Okay. So, yeah, what I do. I can say that I don't do hip-hop, but I am hip-hop since 25 years now. I started in 2002, so it was pretty a long time ago. I started in the streets of my city. And if I have to talk about what's my contribution in what I do, I really have to go back in those years when, after 5 years that I was dancing, I noticed that no one new dancers was starting in the streets. Many people was stopping dancing and no one was starting. So I had some kind of a dream to have a new generation of b-boys and b-girls in my city. And so that's why when somebody proposed me to open a dance school, I started. Everybody said that it was impossible to have a breaking school in my city. Grosseto is kind of small, 80,000 people. But now, after 20 years, my school is one of the biggest one in Italy with kind of 150 breakers. And but I go back to that. Why? Because the key word of this is that I already felt some kind of responsibility from the beginning, you know? I was so young, I was 20 years old, and I already started to felt like, okay, this thing is giving me so much that I have to give back something, okay? And it was something super spontaneous, and that I know that many people who really lives and be hip-hop and not just do it, they know what I mean, okay? So probably the biggest impact that the hip-hop had in my life was the responsibility. Okay, feeling like I can do something for the other people. And then, you know, my life bring me many places. I always focused in breaking. So my school grew up. One of my students became some of the best dancers. And also, I started judging competition internationally. And when the Olympic things came out, you know, breaking now is an Olympic sport, the first dance that is an Olympic sport. I became one of the judges for the qualification for Olympics. So I had the chance to travel the world. And in traveling the world, I had the possibility to share with many people like you guys, okay? And it was amazing, the fact that I can go in many places and I can go back with new vibes, new knowledge, new experience, and share them. Not only with my students, but also with the people that I meet in the next trip, you know? So what I think was amazing is that when you really live hip-hop somehow, and you really have hip-hop as your direction, let's say, many things happen, and your life starts to change, and you start to change the life of the people that live the same and that you meet in your path. So, yeah, I don't like to speak too much about what I do, you know, I just say that because it's kind of important to understand the process, you know, like, okay, he started there, he have a school, he judged around the world, and so he shared. But yeah, for real, what was really at the foundation of what I do was not the ego, but was the feeling of responsibility and the desire of giving back, always. And now is also one of these days. So thank you guys for being here.
So I think we will make use of the other mic on your end, and it can go between the three of you, and this other one will go here. Yeah. So you have heard from them, and basically I think we will start by talking about some songs that talk about, you know, that speak, some hip-hop songs. And the first song that I'm going to speak about is The World Is Yours. And this is a song by Nas, which breaks down the systemic realities of urban planning and infrastructure in New York City. Another song of this kind is All Falls Down by Kanye West, which was produced in 2004. And it dives into the consumerist architecture of modern living, critiques suburban sprawl, and the environments built around retail, malls, and real estate. And just from these songs comes my first question, which will go to TONYII and Tumaini. How is graffiti and skateboarding redefining ownership of urban spaces locally?
Yeah, okay. Thank you. So for me, I think this question I will answer it way better because as he said about the process, I'm just gonna talk about the process of how I started skating. So then you can see how skateboarding redefines public ownership of public spaces like that. So I started skating. How I got my board is I got my board and then I had it, like I was using it in my house, like at home, at my parents' place, and I would just use the veranda. But then I would use YouTube tutorials to just learn how to do it. I didn't know anybody who skates, and for some time it just got boring, and I decided like, you know what, I'm just gonna go to the shop riding the skateboard. I go to school, right towards school, and right in the corridors. And then this one time in CBD, there was an event, and then it was a closed road event. So they had closed a road in the CBD, and these skaters just pulled up. It was evening, I remember, but this time I didn't have my skateboard on me. So I went to this guy and I was like, yo, bro, look, I have a skateboard. Like, where do you guys skate? And then he tells me, yeah, just pull up at Uhuru Park at the time, eh? And that was before the construction. And that was my first experience with the public space with skateboarding. And what we were doing there is we were skating at the podium, during the national events, like the Jamhuri days where the presidents would sit. At some point in Uhuru Park, that's where we had that podium and we would just use it to skate through. And then we would skate during the day, no limitations. That was our public space. And then the reconstruction came through and we were given a notice. We were like, nah, we can't come here anymore. It's going to be closed down. And what we would skate from Uhuru Park, we'd skate during the day and then cruise into the CBD, into Kenyatta Avenue. That's another public space that we would use. And that was the way it is just opposite Bank of India. So we would use that whole space there. It's like an off service lane. So in the evening from Uhuru Park, we just cruise towards CBD to Kenyatta Avenue. So when the Uhuru Park was closed down, that's the only spot we had, and we only use it from 6:30 p.m. up to around 9 p.m. and then you chased away with the city council. So it wasn't sustainable for everybody, like 6:30. Who skates at 6:30 in the evening on a weekday? So most of that, I think many people decided to use streets or just skate at home, and it wasn't sustainable. Then this one time, this guy, he's an old skater. His name is, shout out to Adam Yahweh. He had a relationship with a guy at the mall rooftop where currently we're skating. So he was able to acquire that spot for us, and it became like a public skate spot for us. So when I started skating at the rooftop in Westlands, just here, the mall is right here somewhere, just Naivas below, then the rooftop is at the top of that building. So I started skating there, and then I was realizing this spot is so boring. Like the walls are just gray. And I would spend most of my time there, I just sit, it's so quiet. You had to have your earphones and it was so boring for me. Then in my interaction, because I was coming there daily, I just stumbled upon the owner, and I didn't know he was the owner. So, but then somebody whispered, there's do you know, you just talked to the owner of the mall? I was like, okay, that's the guy. I'll just go and talk to him and say, bro, just give me permission. I have friends, we could come here and just change these walls. I'll come with my own paint, we just come as a crew. He was like, yeah, for sure, take it. As long as you paint it, I have no problem. And that was the beginning of us transforming the walls at the rooftop at the mall. And that's how we're just taking ownership. This is me talking about how skateboarders, we don't just acquire the space and buy legal papers or money. How we own that space is by our presence and us showing up every time. Because that's how, if we just did not continue showing up every time, we wouldn't have gotten that spot. And us, just being, me going to this guy and he just says yes. You see, that was so out of the blue. And that's just me talking about the process.
Yeah, that's a very incredible story. And I think most of us have at some point used the mall rooftop. I think we've at some point found ourselves at this space. Because I think aside from just being, the space that it is, the fact that they identified it, and not only just identified it, they reclaimed it because at some point the mall rooftop was just a space. Nobody was going there. Now if you go to the mall rooftop, it's one of the places where if I am in Westlands and I have nothing to do, I just pop in, you know, because there's always some people skating, there's always some people hanging out around here. And now I think they even have something that has been put up there where you can actually enjoy some music. So I think that's very incredible work from, you know, from you and from everyone from your community, being able to acquire, like, change the perception or the ownership of this space at the mall rooftop. And that actually brings me to another very interesting question also. And this one I think will go to Tumaini. And this question will be, how do we prevent hip-hop murals and cool urban aesthetics from being used by developers to drive up property value, effectively displacing the very culture that reclaimed these spaces in the first place?
Wow, I think that's a very good question. If I'm to link it with Tony's experience, they made it their space. They made it theirs, right? What murals do is create identity or establish identity. It says, we are here, right? And the originators have made it their home. For example, now the mall. The risk that is to happen is that now developers use that space as aesthetics, right? They say, or they use it as a selling point. They say, oh, you know, we have this culture where skateboarders come and there's art, and then they mark up the value of the property. And it's dangerous because what that does is invite outsiders, in quotes, right? Because now it's being used as aesthetics. Now the real emotion of it goes away because once you start to prize art, it takes away from it. Most artists don't know how to price their artworks because for them, they're just creating. For skateboarders, they're just skating. You know, it's a culture. But once now you start to introduce other random things, the place becomes gentrified, right? And it pushes out now the original soul of it. And it displaces the skateboarders. And then what happens to the culture? It goes away. So, I mean, there's policies, but let's face it, we're in a third world country, and policies look good on paper, but they are not really properly, there's no protection for us creatives. And that means when we get displaced now, we have to find another place and start from scratch. And it's a really sad story, but it is what it is. How to prevent it, I think, is something that we can start to talk about, where we say that we're going to have to be strong, we're going to have rebellious spirits and fight against being pushed out and saying, no, this is our space. You're not taking us out of here. Regardless, it's just about us showing up, showing out fearlessly and boldly as creatives.
Yes, I think that's another very powerful thing that you say, because I think this is something that we see often. Where have you actually seen this happen, where you guys went and did like some cool mural somewhere, and after some point somebody was like, hey, we want to make use of this space for something else?
Well, for us as muralists, we are not really attached, you know, to avoid pains like that. We don't get attached to the thing, so that it's easy for you to move on
In case that happens.
easily. Yeah. Sad, but
yeah, that's unfortunate.
it is what it is.
That's unfortunate. So next we go to social transformation, and this one will go to Manouver and Xedo. And my first question will go to Manouver. How does culture empower marginalized groups and areas such as Kibera to challenge traditional perceptions and instead control their own narratives regarding their neighborhood and histories? I ask these questions because you guys just did a documentary about, you know, your lived experience in Kibera. And I think it's very relevant because this documentary not only puts a focus on Kibera, but puts a focus on the work that you guys are doing within the Kibera area. So I think I would like to hear from you, like, what is hip hop doing, to empower, these marginalized communities and even to change the narrative of Kibera. Most people coming into Kenya or who don't know much about Kibera will assume something about it. And so it's nice to like try and understand for you as Manouver, how is hip hop doing that for you?
Yeah, I think, what I feel about hip hop is doing to me is, I think hip hop empower marginalized communities by giving youths and youths in the community platform to tell their own stories. Like, instead of external media's judging of what they had, they become like creators of their own narrative. And that's what we're working at Legitz, and we want hip hop and movement and arts to help the youths and kids and all people in the community to become leaders and storytellers and ambassadors of their own history. And that's what we are looking for by trying to include more programs that will positively impact our community. Yes, and recently we did a documentary trying to explain about what we do as Legitz. We have like 3 segments of the documentary. It's move to empower, move to educate, and move with purpose. And when you try to analyze on the 3 segments, both of them has different story of how someone can maybe internalize about the segments. For example, in move to educate, you can use hip hop to educate through your movements, and move to empower. We're trying to include things that we can do personally, not like as a crew, but personally, what can you do to positively impact the community you're in using hip hop and movements? That's what we're trying to do. Yeah.
No, I think that's also like a very powerful story, because for me, I've had the privilege of watching Legit since most of them were very young. And first of all, the environment from which you guys come, it's something that I see when you dance, because it's like, as you say, there's the storytelling part. Yeah. And even when you dance, somebody can see the storytelling. And so like, I think it's something that is very beautiful that you guys are doing. And it's not very new, because I will just highlight other songs that also speak about social transformation within the hip hop sector. And the first song will be Changes by Tupac. And I think most of us are familiar to this song. And Changes by Tupac tackles the realities of racism, police brutality, poverty, and the drug epidemic within marginalized communities. Another song of this sort is Where is the Love by Black Eyed Peas. And this song was released in 2003. And this is a direct critique to social political issues. It challenges society to look past war, gang violence, racism, and greed, urging a globe to shift towards empathy, unity, and love. So I don't know if this is something that you see, like coming from Kibera, like what are some of the like issues that you're directly addressing within the area?
Yeah, for example, like crime, like gang violence, thefts, like environment. We're trying to include like, not like, for example, dealing directly with the challenges. We're trying to look for the positive side of how can we turn the negative side of Kibera to be positive using movement and arts, because it's so hard to come and try to talk to a youth and to make him understand about this. So it's very easy to use something entertaining and more interesting for youth to come and understand it. So that's why we're trying to include some entertaining and things that can make the youth and kids happy, and yeah, they can learn from us and they can share with the other generations about it.
Yeah, I think that's also something that's very, like, really powerful. And Legitz, one thing I also like with Legitz in terms of how they are working within their community is they're not just using dance to affect the community. I've seen some of the times where they are taking clothes, they collect clothes and they will go to the community, they will make sure kids get these clothes. These are small steps, But when you look at the social economic status of people living in Kibera, sometimes people are not able to afford new shoes for a while. Sometimes somebody will not be able to buy new clothes for their kids for a while because they have other priorities. And so for a crew such as Legitz to go ahead and be able to collect clothes, sometimes even food items, and be able to bring them to these communities, it changes something. It changes the way, first of all, the community perceives hip-hop, and also it changes the way, hip-hop is affecting the community as well. So for me, I have a lot of respect for you guys, and I hope you will keep doing what you're doing.
I appreciate you.
Yeah. So for Xedo is somebody who is at the moment having a big impact also, because he's part of the Olympic, bringing breaking as an Olympic sport to different countries. And my question for him will be, can hip-hop effectively go from raising awareness to influencing actual policy and legislation? This is a question for Xedo.
Okay, yes. I honestly think that hip-hop is something that touches people in a very deep way. Every time you've seen it, no matter what's your kind of environment, where you live, who you are, it's something that is very powerful, okay? It's a tool. And sometimes I remember someone on a book talking about awareness in general. I mean, awareness means be aware of who you are, that you are not just your talks and stuff like that, And there was a question in this book that was like, okay, but if I have this skill and I know about awareness, and what it means to be aware without thinking too much, is it good to put this in service of something that is not that good? Like for a big, I don't know, company that is not doing good thing? And the answer of the writer was, yeah, because it has a power of transformation. So when I think about hip-hop, I really connect to this kind of, it was totally another topic, but I go back there, okay? I think that when hip-hop touch every kind of environment, he can plant a seed somewhere that can really change something. So talking about sports, for example, many of us didn't know, and many of us don't know in general now, but if you talk about Olympic Charter, that is the principles of Olympics, many of them are the same of hip-hop culture. If you read the Olympic Charter, you can find it online. It's going to talk about peace, about unity, about respect, okay? And so it happens to me to have a kind of conversation in a sport environment with people that come from different sports. And there was one person that said something super deep that was like, many times we breakers was thinking like, okay, probably breaking needs sport environment and Olympics to go somewhere. But this guy told something to me that was really deep, that was like, I think that is the sport world that needs breaking, okay? And I think it's totally true, because many sports, for example, nowadays, go far from these kind of principles sometimes. It depends from the show business and stuff like that, But breaking is still there. We still have our principles. We still have peace, unity, love, and having fun as the foundation of whatever we do. So I think that we can really change also the world when they see us. For example, in Olympics, if people who watched the Olympics, and it was a sport that was very watched everywhere, in all around the world, millions of people, seeing athletes that battle, and it seems like they argue, and then they hug, and they share the floor together, they cry together, and stuff like that, is not something that you see in every sport, okay? So, going back to your question, I think that honestly, hip-hop can transform everything it touches. So it just depends if the people that are going representing hip-hop keep those foundations alive inside themselves. If they do, yes, everything is possible for us.
And that's very interesting that you actually mentioned the Olympic Charter, because this is like a declaration, that actually puts hip-hop in that space. Another hip-hop declaration, another declaration of this sort that I know of is the Hip-Hop Declaration, which was actually adopted by the UN Security Council. Yes, and so it shows that really hip-hop is not only affecting people in the way, the music that they listen to or the dance that they're doing, but people are actually taking steps to actually legislate and come up with policy where hip-hop will actually affect those policies and those legislation. So I think that's a very powerful thing. And since you started getting involved with breaking in the Olympics, what is the biggest thing you've seen it affect with people? I know last year you were in Taiwan for the Taipei B-Boy City, and you guys went to visit the Shinobi project with
Exactly,
B-Boy Bojin.
yes.
So for me, that was a very beautiful thing. And what impact did such a visit have for you?
Okay, I think that breaking, as hip hop in general, has the power of being very adapting. He can really adapt to many situations. So you can find breaking in theaters, you can find breaking in movies, you can find breaking in the streets, you can find breaking in sports, you can find it everywhere. And it's kind of the same for all the disciplines of hip hop. Of course, as I told you before, it must be something that's keep together the foundation of what we do, of course, okay? But what I see in the sport environment is a totally kind of new platform that opened, okay? So there was the possibility, for example, to bring a hip hop and breaking inside the schools. So you can start to teach to the kids in the school breaking, and in some place or in a near future, it will be possible to choose like, already now it is that people can practice and go to do competition in breaking in some country. They are kind of justified from the dance school and they can do it, you know? We was, you know how you can say, we was running away from school to go to competitions, you know? So it was kind of the opposite. I know many people that had to stop studying to do breaking. Then they become some of the best b-boys in the world, and then they go back to school. You know, that's kind of, so if you have this possibility, this kind of a new open, from the school environment, for example, is something that also the sports can help to have, okay? And it's not just that. Many b-boys and b-girls who enter the Olympic circuits start to have kind of helps from the country and the sports to have facility for training, and there was like camps and stuff like that. And also the representative in the Olympics was chosen trying to give space to every country, to every people, to everyone. So it's kind of a world that it can seem far from us, but it's really don't, you know? Of course, what is really important is that all the actors of this kind of new landscape has to stay, you know, really connected to what really hip-hop is. If you don't do this, of course, it can be lost, like what happens for some kind of popular rap music and artists, you know? One of the best rappers in the world doesn't really know what is hip-hop, you know? We know it's like that, you know? But it's okay, you know, it's still rap, but it's not hip-hop, you know? So what is really important is that we keep this kind of foundation with us. And yeah, I think the best change that I see with the sport environment was opportunities in general.
Yes, and it's also important what you mentioned about, regardless of where hip hop goes, regardless of which doors it opens, we have to also keep the foundations there, because otherwise we lose the essence of the hip hop. I think my next question will go to Elena, and this is about from street to institution and also cultural diplomacy. So my question to you will be, how effective is hip hop as a vehicle for cultural diplomacy, and why?
So when we are talking about for hip-hop and institution, I think that Xedo already mentioned something. Because I think that, you know, the wider public, when they hear about hip-hop, they really think about something underground, sort of underground culture. Something that, you know, it doesn't belong to the center. You know? But I mean, the story of hip-hop, and of course, you teach me this, it's very long. And as Xedo said, this is already going beyond, because it is going, for example, in agonics sport. So, and it is going to, you know, people that they become professional within the hip-hop discipline. And of course, when a movement is growing so much, in some way, it will affect policies. Because, you know, of course, you have bigger exposure and people will talk about it. And I think that the interesting thing about hip-hop is that it's a culture that is a little bit transversal between nations and countries. And I think that here, even diplomacy has something to learn from this culture. And then, of course, if we are talking about cultural diplomacy, I think that many people really don't understand what it is in a practical way. But of course, I said before, connecting people. Another thing is listening people and being curious. For example, I don't know, when I arrived in Kenya 5 years ago almost, and of course I have, even within the cultural world, I have my own personal passion and preference. But when we are going to a working environment, we cannot just stick to it. Otherwise, you really don't make an impact. But it's important to listen what is coming from the public, from the community, from the ground. And in this way, I think that this is already an example of what is happening today of cultural diplomacy. I'm not a person that have been involved in hip-hop culture in my personal life, just because it didn't happen. But of course, so it was not something that I was thinking about when I arrived here. And in the past year, it didn't happen, but it happened after some time. And that's why I think it's really important to listen and being curious about what is happening and try to, catch the opportunity that you have to expand your job. And yeah, this is it.
And that's very relevant what you said about hip-hop being a universal language, in that it doesn't matter which language you speak or which part of the world you come from, you will relate to hip-hop, regardless. And
I think it's very interesting if we wanted to talk about any kind of formal setting, like, formal studies. This might be something really interesting to, for people to see why this thing happened, how, and how these values that you are sharing between nation, with, between people from different nations with the same interests, can be an example even for the others.
That's true. That's true. And talking about hip-hop being used, as a cultural diplomacy tool, my next question will go to Xedo, and that will be, does structuring of hip-hop elements weaken its ability to serve as a tool for social resistance, or does it provide a larger platform for activism?
I mean, the different disciplines have power of do both. You know what I mean? I think hip-hop, as I said before, whatever he touches, he go deep somewhere, I mean, in the Bronx of the 70s, it found people that was looking for an identity, in a place that was kind of avoiding them, and where they was kind of eradicated from their original culture, and they were there alone, And so the older ones was like trying to accept it somehow, but the younger one, the warriors, the teenagers, didn't. And so what happens when you are eradicated from your original culture, as emergency culture came out, And this is what happens with hip-hop. So those guys needed an identity. They needed to be someone, And so the first thing that born was need of a kind of a recognition. Can you see me? I'm that guy on the wall, that name. I'm that moves on the dance floor, I'm that DJ, So, and it started, and it was so organic and so natural because it wasn't coming from the mind. It was coming from a necessity, something that was very deep. And remember, guys, these guys was teenagers. They were kids between the 13, 14, 15 years old, So now we are here talking about this, about something that 50 years ago some teenagers did, And this is amazing how this was really necessary and strong. But it was so strong that, of course, media started to be interested in it, So they came there, they started to take breaking and to put it on videos, films, movies like Flashdance and stuff like that, So they take hip-hop, and they start to bring it around, also graffiti in the galleries and all the stuff, And so hip-hop expand in all the world, and then, I go back of what I was saying, he touched different realities. And every realities that he touched had different needs. So in Italy, there was a need, for example, that was more connected sometimes, for example, for the rap, was more connected to the politics, So the necessity of rebellion and stuff like that. So the first rap was more on this. Okay, not the very first, but the first period. Okay, many rappers was about this, and in other places like for example, in poor area of Paris, Le Ballier, for example, breaking found a place to grow because people was in need of this kind of recognition similar to the Bronx. So in every place of the world, hip hop came and did something. Sometimes it was activism. So it was like, okay, we want to fight and we want to use hip hop to show what's our rights. In other place was more like a social transformation. So it was more like we need this to be someone, you know? So that's why I said it can do both. It depends what's the needs. Because maybe this is something interesting, it just came into my mind now. Nobody, I think I never heard that nobody say this about hip hop, but maybe when at the question, what is hip hop? Somebody can say, hip hop is an answer. Is an answer to some question, okay? Like what's needed, and hip hop answer. So yeah, I think that it can be both.
That's very true. That's very true. And I think just on this issue, we can also go to the issue of gender visibility. And this one will go back to Tony and Tumaini. And the first question will be, how has the male-centric gaze of early hip-hop influenced the design of urban spaces? And how are female and non-binary artists using the culture to reclaim safe and inclusive spaces?
Yeah, I could go first. That's why I started with the process of how I started skating. So I'll just go through with the same story. So when we were at the mall, our main aim as Girlskate Nairobi, when we formed it with the with Jelimo, our aim was to create a safe space for women because we realized that women are underrepresented in this male-dominated sport. And us now finding a spot at the rooftop, we realized that this is a public space, so it attracts everybody. And with this male-dominated sport, many guys would come by, and it was up to us with the name Girlskate Nairobi to attract the girls to come through at the mall. So we had a bit of a challenge just getting people accustomed to girls coming through at a skate spot like that, so that I remember when some of the girls because we were using social media to attract the girls to come through, and we'd find that they would stick at one spot at the rooftop, and when I came, because I would be there just to also like a social experiment, because I was the one who was hosting the event, so I would have to sit back and be on a third eye view and see like how people are interacting on this space, and how the women are, performing or just existing in the space. And some of the feedback would get was maybe a guy would be like too aggressive, and this is just a way like, and I think this stemmed from hip hop, because me, when I started skating, I'd use videos and watch of how people, like how to skate. So of course, that's where the whole of how to behave in this is a Western sport, skateboarding, right? And us being here in Africa and in our space, we also borrow or try to understand like, how do we do this thing? So you have to refer. And I guess like in the early hip hop, it showed how men would behave and how they were supposed to act. And these young guys, even not knowing what they were doing at that spot, it would change how, like, this is what was expected of them, why to behave when they're on this spot. And us as Girlskate Nairobi, we just had to change that narrative. And we change that narrative by showcasing, like taking up the social medias, like how we show our events on our social media is just how we want our like changing that, so that would attract even more girls. And I would get feedback from a girl saying like, oh, you see, maybe I got this response from a guy like, yo, why you passing through my lane? And, so we had to, sometimes I would go and talk to the guy and just tell them, like, there's a way to embrace everybody in the sport. This is just not your sport. Us as Girlskate Nairobi, we're trying to make more girls to come here. So you being with that attitude is not helping ourselves here. So we all need to mingle and embrace these girls to feel like they're safe. So as I was saying, I think it stemmed from how people would view, like, borrow from watching the videos and things like that. But then us creating our own narrative and posting it on the social medias gives a more of a reference of how female spaces to be set up. Like that's what we do with Girlskate Nairobi.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's very powerful what Tony is saying, and I think I will relate it to another question that will go to you. What institutional changes are needed to move gender visibility beyond tokenism and towards a system where girls and women hold executive power in hip-hop-driven projects and spaces?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. But let me just say something about the previous question. It's true. Hip hop stemmed from guys, right? And the culture now around it became about competition, aggression, just like, yeah, see me kind of thing, yeah? And it's stemmed down and boiled down to girls or women being intimidated by that kind of culture. And so the thing about it is that the women, the girls, are creating safe spaces. They're changing the narrative. Talking about care, talking about, safety, talking about love, community. It's not about competition, collaboration. It's about, spreading joy and sunshine and rainbows kind of thing. But, so to the question, I think usually women would be portrayed as the performers, the faces, but they don't have the back say, they're not the ones organizing, they're not the ones on the table, they're not the ones stating what they want. They're like they're at the end phase of the whole thing. You understand me? So for it to push beyond just tokenism or to be said, we need women, we need to see women at this, so they just collect a bunch of girls and, here, we have women here. For it to just push beyond that, it's just about women taking stance and saying, I appreciate you wanting me to show up in the end, but I also want to be at the table where you guys are discussing what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, what we're going to be paid, everything around it. So it's about women, showing up and saying, I need to, it's just about us coming out, basically. Can I see all the girlies in the house? All the girlies in the house. I'm so proud to see you guys here. But yeah, it's just about us being there, and it's not being given to us as charity, but being part of the conversation and being there.
And that's also very interesting because I think this is something that stems from the origins of hip hop. I will throw a question to the audience. Do any of you know a female founder of hip hop? Anyone? We all know the likes of Kulahak, we all know we know the male founders of hip hop, but does anyone know a female founder in hip hop? Not put in the back, but something has always not been said. Somebody always forgot to say something about women's contribution in the development of hip hop. And so that's very unfortunate, and it's very lovely to have, people such as Tony, people such as yourself, who are really putting in a deliberate attempt to rewrite that story. I think that is very important.
Yeah, and about that, even when we teach kids or the next generations about creativity, about art, about hip hop, about all these things, we need to also mention the founders and the women founders especially. An example would be, I'm an artist, I learn art, right? But when you're being taught art, you'd hear Pablo Picasso, you'd hear Vincent van Gogh, all these men. You're just learning about the men artists, but no women artists are being mentioned, and they are there. So I think just to balance out, I think guys, talk to your sisters, your cousins, your mothers about women creators, and women also find out research about the women in your field and what they did, and just consume that kind of content and then talk about it, and then we'll get to a level playing field kind of thing.
Okay, so yes. Let's keep it short. We are almost
Yes, super
out.
short. I will just want to say that we have to remember that today we are here because of the women that built this. Mariana.
Yeah,
was a
yeah.
woman
Shout
in
out to
charge of
Mariana.
building this.
Shout out to Mariana.
Julia Biggerchim from Rome. She's the director of the festival, the director of this documentary. She's the one who created Hip Hop Cinefest.
wow. That's
and
amazing.
also Elena was, and her stuff is made by women. So yeah, thank you, girls, for real.
Yeah, so we are almost out of time, but before I have two more questions for the panelists. Before that, I want to throw this to the audience. If you guys might have any questions for the audience, this is your time. If you have any question for the panelists, this is your time. Any questions for the panelists? Okay, I have a question for the panelists. And this one can go to anyone. What support or resources or infrastructure are available? This one will go to Elena to support hip hop. And then just before you answer that question, I will ask a question to Manouver. What infrastructure, support, resources are missing?
Okay, I'm going first. Let's say that when we talk about support and programs, maybe we are not just talking about for hip hop, but for cultural practitioner in general. So for sure, from our side, what we are doing is to try to connect people in Kenya, in this case, because we work in Kenya. So at the moment, for example, we don't have opportunity to bring people to Italy unless they are going for scholarship. And there are actually some artistic school. So we have a high-level school for music, for dance, and for theater as well. So this is the main option if somebody wants to study art at the university level. So in case anybody is interested, we have this scholarship program. And for the moment, I have to be honest, we had a lot of people studying business, a lot of people studying engineering. Honestly, we didn't have so much in art, and we are missing so much. So this is one option. Then, of course, one of the things that we like to do is include artistic practitioners from Kenya in our events. We did it a lot with jazz musicians, for example. So we brought people for residencies. They were working with Kenyan musicians, and they put up a show together. They continue to work together. So this is the kind of support that we can do. And then there is, of course, these kinds of events and promotion in general. So if we find a way that might be mutually beneficial, we are ready to promote it. Yeah, this is to be very practical. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. For what is missing, I think is, first I'll start with what is most crucial. Permanent creative spaces, for artists. And that's what we're trying to look upon, and that's the main goal of the documentary we did recently. We're trying to fundraise and build a permanent studio in Kibera. And what I think is missing again is partnership with government and private sector institutions, and consistent funding models. Because recently, I think most of the projects we had in Kenya, we have like financial instabilities, and we need to come with a structure support system that helps artists and all of the artists dealing with the artists and organizations, that if we can find support that can support organizations that help artists. Because if you look around, like b-boys and artists, small artists that are coming up, there's no like the support to raise them. So we need to like look upon on results rather than just ideas, for the government and the private institution to take hip-hop and movement seriously. Yeah, that's what I think.
So what Manouver just said right now is very important, because some of these things like consistent funding models, partnerships, permanent creative spaces, I think this one goes across all elements of hip hop. It's not just a question about breaking, it's not a question about skateboarding or graffiti. It's something that is a problem across all sectors. So I think those are like some of the things that we need to really pay attention to. And this also leads me to another question, which is, which argument can be made, sorry, which arguments can be made to convince government and private sector that investing in hip-hop-based soft measures, culture and education provide a high return on investment for urban safety and economic development? I think this question will also go to anyone, and Tony had something to say, so I think I will let her go first. And then I think I will also let... I will give her this, the next one will go to Xedo.
For me, yes.
All right, so before I wanted to add one more thing, because we are talking about what's missing and what do we have, because I wanted to point out that some of our halves is we have the social media, that's what we have as our tool set. That's what we have, and we need to use that as creatives as much as possible. And what we don't have on our side too, I think it's Medicare, because this is a sport. All of us, the hip hop and everything, the breaking and the skateboarding, graffiti, Medicare is one of the things that we don't have. But Medicare, yeah. So on to the other question of how.
What arguments can be made to convince government and private sector that investing in hip-hop soft measures provides a high investment on return for urban safety and economic development?
Yeah, it's an easy question. Like, hip-hop already is doing social infrastructure as it is, just like that. And that's what these governmental institutions just can't do. What we do is we build communities, and that is just the best argument that we can go and just run with it. And they're gonna listen to us, that they need us. They need us artists. So that's just our best argument.
Xedo?
Yeah, I think that what hip-hop can really give to this kind of realities like governments and stuff like that is the possibility to reach people that many times they lost the faith in the government, okay? So if some kind of government can find a way to invest in hip-hop in general, it means that the government find something, some way to connect to what is like the necessity of the people, Hip-hop is kind of a white culture. Many people are really like hip-hop heads. Many others just follow the principles and they know what it is. But so it's kind of how can I say, a certification, it's some kind of hip-hop events is supported by the government and stuff like that. Also the government have some kind of recognition about this, because hip-hop is also about recognition, We recognize the sponsor of our event, the partnership, and all the stuff. So I think that something that we can really do is explain it, that we can really do big social works, and we can really bring wealth. And this is something that, of course, is interesting for the government, and also many people will agree that this is good, you know? So I think that it's possible to create some good connection and create something all together, but of course it needs time, process, and work, that's sure.
So I think that's they've both mentioned something that's very important, and that is the value which hip hop brings. You know, so a lot of times when we have to present hip hop to private sector or to government, it's hard to quantify the value of hip hop. But I was reading a report recently that was very interesting for me, and it explained how much hip hop as an economy is worth, and that is $16 billion. That is, to be exact, it's $15.7 billion. That was as of 2023. So you can imagine as of 2026, that value might have gone even like more up. And what that represents is a value system whereby as a person practicing hip hop, most of the time what we see is the dance or the music. But hip hop as an industry also has something like journalism. You know, there's a lot of things going on around that. There's a lot of things going on around fashion that also has a lot to do with hip hop. So like, there's a lot of industries within hip hop that sometimes we do not recognize. These cameras that you see here are here because of hip hop. That person is a journalist because of hip hop. There are writers who have written books about hip hop. So that shows you that hip hop is not just, you know, what we are doing here or the music that we're listening to, but is a broader economy. And once you start seeing hip hop as an economy, then it becomes an easier conversation to actually push. I like what Tony said about, just a minute, about social infrastructure, because this is an argument also that is hard to, you cannot deny this argument. This is a community that we've created through hip hop. Otherwise, we might not have been friends even. You know, there's some people that I met here that otherwise I will never have met. So that shows you something that is very powerful about hip hop. And just to finish, I think the 5 pillars of hip hop are not just artistic expressions. They are methods of spatial justice, tools for cultural diplomacy, and frameworks for economic resilience. The goal is not just to find hip hop a seat on the table. It is to allow hip hop to redesign the very table entirely. Whether it is through reclaiming abandoned spaces or using platforms such as the Global Cipher to speak across borders, the culture remains our most potent vehicle for social transformation. So on this point, I think we're just about to wrap up, and I will let the panelists use one word to describe the future of hip hop. Just one word.
One word. Yes. Let's start from there.
Culture. Hip hop is culture.
Just one word.
Community.
Transformation.
So as an external person, I would say vibes.
Love.
And I will say my word is change. And so finally, I think we're just about to wrap up. I would like to appreciate every panelist that was here. Thank you for finding the time. Thank you, Mariana, for having us. And thank you to every member of the audience for being here. The call to action is as follows. If you are a planner, listen to the lyrics of your neighborhoods. They are your most honest data. If you are an activist, remember that knowledge of self is the foundation of any movement. If you are an artist, know that your work is the literal heartbeat for the urban landscape. Thank you very much, and thank you for the time.